springtime here in central Indiana, and that means it's time for the panfish to start getting active. We don't have a whole lot of trout in central Indiana, so panfish are some of the first fish that we look forward to as soon as the weather starts getting warmer. In that vein, I'm going to be doing a series of panfish flies over the next few weeks, and we're going to start with this one today, which is the Bluegill Candy Hopper. It's a fantastic terrestrial fly. It's a great topwater fly. It's great for bass even though this time of year terrestrials aren't out. Panfish might hit them if you get a nice warm day, but this is a great pattern to have in your arsenal, whether it's in the spring or in the summer. This is a real simple pattern to tie. It's basically just three different materials, two different materials if you don't count color changes. So that's a Bluegill Candy Hopper. We'll go ahead and get started. Bluegill Candy Hopper uses closed-celled foam, sometimes referred to as a craft foam. It's a 2mm foam, and we're going to use a tan and a chartreuse color for this fly today. We're going to want to cut these into strips, each, whether it's the belly or whether it's the back of the fly, it's going to be a strip, and the strip's going to be about 2 hook lengths long. The width of the strip will be about a gap of the hook. And then on one end, you're going to want to round off one end. If you happen to have some Chernobyl ant body cutters like I do, these are from River Road Creations, you can use these to stamp out just some bunch of bodies really quick. It's a razor cutter that's already all set. You just stamp along the foam, and in no time you can have the belly foam and the back foam for these, and you're ready to go. So that's Chernobyl ant cutters, but you don't need those to make the foam to tie these flies. The hook that I'm using for this fly is a Mustad 9672. This is a size 8. It's a little bit heavier wire hook. Before we can actually mount the hook in the vise, we have to attach the belly segment of the foam onto the hook. We do that by placing the hook at the end of the rounded end of the foam, and about a gap width in, we just pierce right through the foam, and this will give us our tail hanging off of the back of the hook shank. I slide that around onto the hook, and then I can mount the hook into the vise. With the hook mounted in the vise, I can go ahead and attach my thread along the hook shank. For thread, I'm just using a Wapsi UTC Ultra thread in a 140 Denier in a Chartreuse color. I'm going to attach the thread right behind the eye of the hook and run it down the shank, just giving it a little bit of a thread base. You'll see in a while when we attach the bodies on here, we're going to use a little bit of Zap-A-Gap or a CA glue, and that will help fuse both sides of the foam around the hook shank. I'll get the belly foam in position with the tail hanging off the back, and then I'm going to take some Zap-A-Gap, and I'm just going to put a small drop right on the tail segment, right in the back. This will help glue the back section or the chartreuse section of foam down to the body and help hold it in place as we're wrapping the thread around it. Just hold that foam together for a second or two to get that Zap-A-Gap to start binding those together. Try and keep my fingers out of the way so you can see what's happening. Once that's held in place a little bit, I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to wrap it right around the body, right at the end of the shank, 2 times loose. And on my third wrap, I'm going to secure the foam on the hook shank, and I'm going to pull that thread in to cinch that foam into the hook shank. Be careful not to pull too hard on that foam, as the thread can actually cut through that foam. With it cinched down, you'll put in 4 or 5 more wraps just to help further cinch it down tighter and secure it right at the end of the shank. At this stage, you separate the foam and bring the thread in between the foam and advance it up the hook shank. We're going to want to segment the rest of the hook shank into 3 equal sections as we work our way up towards the eye of the hook. Again, I'll put a little bit of zap-a-gap on the foam. I'll squeeze the 2 halves together around the hook shank, just holding them together for a second or so. Wrap your thread around 2 times lightly. On the 3rd wrap, you're going to pull and cinch that thread down. And then you'll put in another 4 or 5 wraps to further secure that segment. After that, it's the same thing, working your way up to the eye of the hook. Your thread up behind the eye of the hook, we're going to need to trim off the excess tan closed-celled foam. So you want to trim that right behind the eye of the hook. And then you'll pinch that together a little bit around the hook and use the thread to grab just the ends of the tan foam and cinch that down and secure it right behind the eye of the hook. Be careful with your thread wraps here. Just take your time. It's very easy to pile up too many thread wraps right behind the eye of the hook here. Put another little drop of zap-a-gap on there. Then we'll fold over the chartreuse foam, bringing it off the front, and then a couple of wraps with thread loose right behind the eye of the hook, and then cinch that down, maybe 1 or 2 more, just to secure that a little bit. After you've secured it behind the eye of the hook, you're going to advance your thread back down the hook shank over the top of the foam to the previous segment. Fold over the chartreuse foam to finish off the head of the fly, and I like to push the foam just a little forward. If you draw it back too tight, it makes it very slender. I like to have just a little bit more bulk up front, so I scooch that foam just a little bit forward. Again, 2 wraps around to cinch the foam in, 2 wraps to secure it. We'll take our scissors at this point, and we're going to snip the tag end of foam to a point. Now we're ready to tie in our rubber legs. Rubber legs, I'm using some Wapsi round rubber legs that are already pre-barred. They're yellow with black barring. Montana Fly has some centipede legs that are also really good. It's a round rubber leg with black barring. However, if you do not have either one of those, but you just have some plain round rubber leg in a yellow color, you can always make your own barred round rubber legs by taking a strip and just using a Sharpie on both sides of it and you can make your own barred round rubber legs. I'm going to cut 4 rubber legs to about 2 inches in length. I want them a little bit longer than what I need. I can always trim them back. I'm going to tie those down to the fly about 1/3 the way down from one end of the rubber legs. This gives me a little shorter front legs and longer back legs. Just like before, I'm going to put a couple wraps right over the legs and the foam, loose wraps, and then maybe cinch those down a little bit. And then I'm going to slide each set of rubber legs out to the outside of the foam. When you're lashing those down to the foam, just be careful. If you cinch the thread down too tight, you're going to pull those rubber legs into the foam, and they'll end up sticking out more perpendicular and less of a V shape where you have legs kind of sticking out the front or sticking out the back. Just put in another 3 or 4 wraps right on top of what you had, and then we can do a 4 or 5 turn hand whip finish right where we just lashed in the rubber legs, and then we're done with our thread and we can cut the thread off. I like to trim the front rubber legs. I'll collect them together and I'll trim those so that they stick out maybe 1/8 of an inch or so past, 3/8 of an inch past the eye of the hook. And then I'll collect the back legs together and do the same, but those I'll trim so that they're about 1/2 a shank length behind the bend of the hook. Just evens them up. They're not too long. You can leave them longer if that's what you would rather have. They'd have a lot more movement in the water. Place a little bit of head cement along the thread wraps. This isn't to really hold the fly together as much as it is to help the little teeth from panfish to keep from tearing the thread up, and makes the fly last a little bit longer. So that's the Bluegill Candy Hopper. It's a wonderful terrestrial hopper type pattern. It works great for panfish and bass. I've used it in the springtime as well as throughout the summer. I think one of the things I like the most is it's so simple to tie that you can have a number of different color combinations and a number of different sizes in your box at no time at all. I found that the tan and chartreuse color works real well. I've also used a yellow back and a black belly that's worked really, really well, as well as an orange back and a brown belly has worked really, really well. Adjust the thread colors and the leg colors to more or less match those. The Bluegill Candy Hopper is just an all-around excellent fly to have in your box. I imagine it'd even work on trout streams, although I haven't fished it for trout. So that's the Bluegill Candy Hopper. Look for more panfish flies in the coming weeks and get out there and have some fun. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and not only learned a new pattern, but maybe learned some new techniques and a few new skills. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button below. You can support Dressed Irons by hitting the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos are published. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.